Ladies and gentlemen, this is a Viridescent podcast, the third episode, with your only host, Hassad Green. Thank you very much. No applause? Oh, whatever. This is audio and this is pre-recorded anyway. Who am I kidding? I know that wherever you are listening, if you are listening, perhaps you're applauding in your hearts, and from afar, from a distance, big or small, near or far, I can sense that in my spirit. So thank you very much. This is the third episode, and I hope that, as they say, third time is a charm. If you made it this far, let's hope so. This episode, I'm going to obviously talk about a few things. Some things that definitely have some high sentimental value to me. A couple of things have happened in current events, current news, that do affect me close to home, so I believe I am going to discuss those things. I'm even, this episode, going to talk about women. I'm not going to do it like the last episode. If you listened, the last episode had a segment where I talked about women, but it was more so about me. It was about what the women had said about me. And by now, by the third episode, if you're, I guess you could say, a regular listener, you probably don't want to hear so much about me. You kind of maybe want that peppered in there here and there, but maybe more so my opinions, my thoughts, so forth on different topics, ideas, that sort of thing. So we'll get to that. We'll have that in this episode for sure. I'm trying to think was there anything else? Oh, yeah, of course. I'm feeling it right now. You may not notice in the state of my voice, and the fact that I have been taking some decent pharmaceutical drugs. Right now I am playing through pain, or a better metaphor, a more direct, specific metaphor is that I'm talking through pain. One of my wisdom teeth went bad a day or so ago, and I am living through both pain and discomfort. And for those of you who don't think that they're two different things, or don't consider them to be two different things, they are two different things. Pain is one thing, and while this hasn't been very painful, in my opinion, I've had worse. I've experienced worse pain. The discomfort is definitely there. Right now, the left side of my face, as of this recording, the left side of my face looks like, it makes me look like Glenn Quagmire could be my father. Let's put it that way. Ha 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 ha. Giggity giggity. Anyway, so yeah, I'm talking through the pain, trying to make it work. And let's hope that this episode is no different than the first two, hopefully the best yet. All right, next up is a riddle. All right, it is riddle time. And for this episode, I'm actually going to incorporate a riddle. I'm not going to do the movie trivia. I think maybe as I go on, I'll alternate or try to mix it up episode to episode. This one particular riddle is a word riddle. You have to guess the word, and it might be easy for some, might be a little difficult for others. I hope it's not too hard for you. But like to hear it go. The riddle is, what four-letter word can be written forward, backward, or upside down and can still be read from left to right? Once again, what four-letter word can be written forward, backward, or upside down and can still be read from left to right? And I will give you the answer during the 29 segment. All right, the first segment, as I mentioned in the opening of this episode, this first topic hits close to home. I say close to home. It's sentimental to me. It's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And it has to do with some current news that had gone out to the world earlier in the week. Of course, my podcasts are all pre-recorded, so by the time you hear this, you likely have already heard the news. The news was in regards to famous trivia game show host, Jeopardy host, to say it more properly, Alex Trebek. He put out a message to all of his fans, all of his Jeopardy watchers, myself included, that he was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And in this day and age, when you hear that someone has like stage 4 of some kind of cancer, to me at least, and maybe most people out there, your mind just goes into thinking, oh shit, how much time does he or she have left? You know? And for me, when I read the video, or I not read the video, Jesus. When I watched the video, he's talking about things, and I kind of already knew what the message was because social media is social media, and all kind of outlets will put it out there. So I kind of knew what he was going to say already. I watched the video personally just to see if it was true. I mean, it was him, recorded, and him talking about things. And it was in that video where he said it, and he admitted that the prognosis for such a diagnosis, the odds weren't high of a great recovery, but quite frankly, Alex Trebek, as savage as he's been during some Jeopardy games, in fact, Sean Connery might have something to say about it. Alex Trebek is pretty lighthearted, and he conveyed that same lightheartedness, that same optimism in the video. He stuck to his guns. He's telling the fans that he's going to beat it. And to add added incentive, he says, I have to beat it because I signed a contract to host Jeopardy for 3 more years. So that's, I guess, a reason as any to, make sure you come out successful from this mountain of his decline. Now, at the moment, I'm not totally sure how old, I'm not specifically sure how old Alex Trebek is, what his age is, but I believe he's in his 70s. And he's getting up to Bob Barker age. And Bob Barker was on a side note, Bob Barker was another game show host that was like a best friend almost. He was like a best friend that you never met, but he, for the most part, was always where you could find him, especially on sick days. I don't know about y'all, but whether I was sick for real or not, sorry, Mom, for most of my life, most of my childhood, I think it was up until I was roughly 20. It was shortly before my firstborn was born, before my first son was born. So much of my younger years, Bob Barker was always on television, at least here on the East Coast, always on TV at 11 a.m. Monday through Friday, unless there was some kind of holiday or special presentation or, whatever. Hell, like I said, on sick days, or quote-unquote sick days, Bob Barker was just as good as my pediatrician. And if I didn't see my doctor, he damn sure was my pediatrician practically. And the same thing could be said to a certain degree about Alex Trebek. I, for one, love Jeopardy. I still watch it to this day. And I have to say that given Alex Trebek's situation, he's not necessarily retiring. Bob Barker got out of the game, I think, in his 80s, his early 80s. If not him being exactly 80 years old. Where he just knew that, he just couldn't do the job anymore. In fact, Bob Barker had a more physical job than Alex Trebek has. So the physicality of the, hosting, being on your feet for 45 to 60 minutes every episode, and like many game shows, believe it or not, they air or they shoot, I think, anywhere 2 to 3 episodes a day. I think, right? It might be more. I don't know. But in Trebek's case, for me, it's the same. I look at it the same way as I looked at Bob Barker when he departed from hosting one of my favorite game shows. Whether, and I'm not a religious person, but God willing, or whatever the higher power is, if Alex doesn't make it, and he's gone sooner than his fans want him to be, or are ready for him to be, Jeopardy just won't be the same. And, if he makes it, and he goes through the length of his contract, he doesn't renew his contract, he just wants to live out, the rest of his life in retirement, relaxed, it's not the same. I don't know if some of you remember several years ago, but VH1 had Rock and Roll Jeopardy that was on. And Trebek didn't host that. I think, what was his name? Jeff Probst, who hosts Survivor, actually hosted that show, and it just wasn't the same. I'm not sure if you have to be, someone who's up in years, who looks like you've got a lot of wisdom and just an easygoing, just kind of game showish kind of vibe to make it work. I'm not sure. But it just wasn't the same Rock and Roll Jeopardy. In fact, it wasn't quite TV. It's I'm not sure if it is still streaming, but for a while, definitely on Sony's, because Sony has the rights to Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, I might add. But Sony's Crackle internet streaming app had Sports Jeopardy, and that was hosted by sports journalist Dan Patrick. And that just wasn't the same. For me personally, I love trivia. I got a kick out of it. I watched it. It just didn't leave me with the same, feelings that I would have after watching an episode of Jeopardy. Now, Jeopardy has been with me, like I said, for as long as I can remember. My mother watched it. She still does watch it. And I was technically brought up on it. My firstborn's brought up on it, you could say. My second son, who's only 2, he seems like he's being brought up on it, although he obviously doesn't speak in complete sentences, doesn't understand the idea of answering clues in the form of a question, no less. But he hears the tune, and he knows it's something special. So that's something to build on for him. But Jeopardy has always been a part of my life. I made sure my homework was done, definitely by 7:30 p.m. That's what time it aired around here. I definitely should have had my homework done, I might add. I mean, my mother would have thought there was a problem. Either I was sick or I just wasn't in the home, whatever. But by 7:30, before you could record TV or DVR stuff or whatever, I made sure that I was in front of a television to watch Jeopardy, either with my mother or alone, or as my life went on with, significant others, or again on my own, whatever. And it's still a part of my life. Hell, I remember a time, or it kind of still happens, if I'm lucky enough to be at my grandparents' house, at that time of the night, and Jeopardy is on, like they really don't care what their grandkids or whomever is in the house changes the channel for exactly. At least if it's past, I think 7 o'clock, like between 5 and 7, or all the news hours. So they want to watch the news or get whatever news they can get. But if I'm still in the house and Jeopardy's on at like 7:30, I'll turn on Jeopardy and I'll start playing. And I'll never forget this. I'll take this with me to the grave for the rest of my life. But my grandfather and my grandmother were always impressed by how well I would do. I wasn't a perfect player. Okay, there's things I don't know. Totally, there's things I don't know. But they were always impressed by stuff that I could just come up with quickly. Perhaps that's... Oh, it is. It's a little bit of, grandparents being proud of their grandkids, and it was always nice, a fun little thing that could boost my confidence upon leaving their house. But anyway, it was a bit sad of news, and I had heard news before about other celebrities or people, like friends, family, who have had rather low odds in their prognoses or diagnoses. That's the correct way to say it. Of the terrible disease that is cancer. And instead of coming away from the video that Trebek put out there, it was a bit devastating at first to hear him say that. It was him saying it. It wasn't a rumor. I guess he kind of wanted to put it out there before rumors got started, he said. But his optimism and his eagerness to beat the disease, because he's got 3 years left on his contract, left me feeling almost as confident as he is. I know one day that I'll continue watching Jeopardy and Alex Trebek won't be the host. Okay. And it'll be tough to get used to seeing someone else. But for now, and for the last, almost 30 years, as far back as I can remember being 3 years old. So yeah, let's say 30 years. For most of this time in my life, he was always the host of Jeopardy. And it was fun watching and playing along. And it'll just be tough. Like this video just kind of put it in my head that, wow, nothing lasts forever. I mean, one of the many, many things in life you experience or you witness, and it just reminds you that nothing lasts forever. So to close this segment, close discussion on this topic, Mr. Trebek, if you're listening, I salute you for having the courage and optimism in beating such low odds. I hope that you do. I definitely hope that you do. And I look forward to seeing you on future episodes of Jeopardy. Your biggest fan, or maybe tied for your biggest fan, Hassan Green. Thank you. And now, it's time to talk about you lovely ladies out there without sounding like a creep. 'Cause that's how I do it, baby. Actually, I don't really do it that way. I don't usually sound like that without a few drinks and a late night phone call. But who late night phone calls anymore? It's all about texting. In fact, I haven't used that voice in 10 years. I don't know. I'm going down a rabbit hole that I don't need to go down right now. But the primary statement was true. We're going to talk about the ladies. Recently, it was International Women's Day. And I just want to say, I don't think it should be called International Women's Day. It should be called Women's Day, and it should be celebrated. Women should be celebrated every single day. Men should be celebrated every single day. Black History Month shouldn't just be a month. Hispanic heritage shouldn't be compressed in the one spot in the calendar. Anything. LGBTQ awareness, AIDS awareness, breast cancer, prostate cancer, whatever the cause is, shouldn't be boiled down to just a day or a week or a month. These things in our society, from these different backgrounds, causes, ways of life, should be celebrated and recognized every single day. Alas, that's not reality. We have to face it and accept what we can accept. And recently was International Women's Day. It's an important one to me. There are very important women in my life. Always have been. I've been inspired by women, whether we're talking about my mother, my grandmothers, my sisters, both my sisters, my aunts, my cousins, teachers, best friends. Hell, I'll throw, significant others in there, former ones in there. Women are very, very important. And they should be honored all day, every day. Whether you're a man, if you're a man, honor women. If you're a woman, honor women. I mean, hell, all of us roaming this earth, we wouldn't be here without a woman, a particular woman, in fact. We all have a mother. Whether we like that person or not, whether we get along with that person or not, whether we're estranged from that mother or not, we all have a mother. That woman, whomever she is, made sure or did the best she could to deliver us safely into this world. Breathing, healthy, hopefully healthy. And here we are. And women are definitely special in that regard because, honestly, some of you women have great courage in saying through your teeth how adorable your baby might be, even if deep down inside you might have hesitated before making that statement. Yeah, I've seen some of these babies, and I'm not saying they're ugly. I'm saying both my children were pretty adorable. Nothing tops that. Not many top that. But moving on. Women's Day was recently. International Women's Day was recently. And of course there were men out there who had something to say. I saw a funny meme out there. It said something along the lines of, today is International Where's International Men's Day. And that was a wink and a nod to those men who were freaking out that women were given one day out of the 365 and a quarter days in the calendar, that they were recognized throughout the globe. The round globe, not the goddamn flat earth. Ain't no damn thing. And those men that are butthurt, stay butthurt. Go kick rocks. Go walk in traffic. It's ridiculous, okay? You're not to be served. Quite frankly, women ought to be served. If people got to get served, okay, men can get served a little bit, but women definitely have to get served, okay? Women put up with a lot of shit, whether it's through carrying a baby full term or even being fortunate enough to be able to carry a child to full term, to then possibly go through pain and deliver that child, to then raise that child, hopefully with some help, to then live her life the way that hopefully she can, either with a partner or not, and also concurrently raising that child and not be an asshole, because in a matter of speaking, that's what raising a child is. You're trying to make sure that the little baby that you end up with doesn't grow up to be an asshole. But anywho, women put up with a lot of shit. Women are still paid equally. They miss out on many opportunities. They have to give 110% and then like an extra 50 to another 100% just to prove that they can hang with the quote unquote big boys. Those are just, a couple of examples, or that's just an example where women have it tough. And the audacity of some men out here to act like that we as men are entitled to something just because we're men, it's just not cool. I mean, don't get me wrong. I am not the perfect man. There was probably some point in my history where I made a misogynist comment. I never had my way with a woman. I never took advantage of a woman. I've lied to both men and women. I've taken advantage in the perhaps moral sense of not only men, but definitely women during my younger and dumber days, as some old folks like to say. But I like to think I have a good head on my shoulders as a self-respecting young man in this society, much less this country. And from what I've heard from various women out there, that's a rare thing to have. Now, I'm not putting myself out there to say that I am now a perfect man. I'm not a perfect man. I never will be a perfect man. As far as perfection goes, honestly, in my opinion, I can only be perfect if a woman, a good woman, effortlessly makes me feel that way. That's how much I value, or I was raised to value, a good woman. I shouldn't have to worry about perfection, but if I feel it, for example, in the presence of a good woman, then I'm set. There, unfortunately, aren't many like me or like us, you fellas out there, if you're like-minded. And it's kind of a shame. I shouldn't say it's kind of, it is. It's a damn shame. And you fellas out there that are listening, if you've got young boys or if you've got sons who are up in age or what have you, if they're older, if they're young men, or if they've become grown men, depending on your situation, I just hope that I hope and I trust that they have been raised to respect women the way that they deserve to be respected. I mean, women right out the gate, not even right out the gate, from conception, if you want to get technical about the science of gender, and that kind of sounds like that's a Pandora's box, which could be pretty dangerous to open. But what I want to say is that a woman, from the moment or the moments after conception, when a gender is determined by chromosomes, that female is going to be at a disadvantage, unfortunately, it seems, at least the way society is. That female is going to be at a disadvantage through much, if not all, of her life, unfortunately. I mean, there are many things that women have to just grin and bear because they are women. Pregnancy is a thing I mentioned before. There's that lovely, bright menstrual cycle, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. There are, there's misogyny, there's sexual harassment, there's boys, they are boys, whether they're old enough to drink or not, males who act like little boys, immature little boys that are only interested in one thing and one thing only, and y'all know what I'm talking about. They got to deal with that. Now, it's a little, at the least, it's a little close to home for me to talk about how important women are to everyone's lives. I am a walking testament to that. And to go back in history, hopefully a little briefly, I was born in the mid 80s, practically damn near just past the middle point of the 80s. And when I came home from the hospital, my first home, my first, four walls and a roof, was my grandparents' home, grandparents' house. And my grandfather has worked all of his life, as far as I know, as far as, all the stories and history, photographs, everything can give me. My grandfather has worked all of his life, and he made sure that that house was a house, if that makes sense to you. And my grandmother, Queen of the Castle, my mommy's mommy, she made sure that that house was a home, no matter who was staying in there. And she still does. She's done it for years. And it's, as an adult at my age now, it's a bit of I'm ashamed to say it's a bit of neglect on my part. And probably, my sister, my cousins, our generation, it's a bit of neglect on our part, because we were younger, we were more naive, and we didn't really know what it was like to be an adult and go through the rigors of life, the game called life. And as we became adults, we really got to appreciate not just my grandfather, but definitely my grandmother. And I'm not taking anything away from my grandfather at all. I will definitely speak highly of him in a whole other segment, in a whole other episode. You betcha. Take that to the bank. But my grandmother made that house a home. And the knowledge she passed down to her daughters, who then filtered that knowledge down, not just directly from herself, but from her daughters to her granddaughters. And one day to her great-grandchildren, is something that, if there is such a thing as value, she's priceless. Speaking of her daughters, one of them is my mother, obviously. And my mother, and one day I'll get deeper about, perhaps deeper about why my mother was a single mom, or chose to be a single mom, however you want to look at it, through much of my childhood. My mother, at times, yes, was predominantly a single mother, and she raised, when she was finally, off from the nest, and she took her two babies, myself and my little sister, away, and we lived on our own, just the three of us. My mother was at times both mommy and daddy. She definitely whooped my ass like she was daddy. That's yeah. Anyway, I'm going off track. But there's a certain level of immeasurable strength to be two parents at the same damn time. All the while in the beginning, or at some point in the beginning of this time in her life when she was on her own, she was working not very good hours. She would start work in the afternoon and not get off until late at night. So there was several months where she put in those hours, she put in that work, sacrificed her days with her kids to, make sure we had a roof over our heads, and make sure we, in addition to, contributions from my dad, as much as he could give, but made sure that we were well taken care of. And women like that don't get celebrated every day. That's true. They can get celebrated on International Women's Day. They can get celebrated on Mother's Day, of course. That's another one. My mother gets celebrated on her birthday. Sometimes my sister and I will joke with her when Father's Day comes around. And since I became a father, she would call me or, come by and visit me, or I would go by and see her, and she'd go, Happy Father's Day. And I go, thanks, you too. Um, and not to take away from my dad, it was just a funny inside joke because her and I's sense of humor is like that. But women like my mother, I don't know too many of them. I do know some of them personally. Absolutely. It just seems like what I see out there in the news or out there in social media, I mean, I say the news and perhaps it's not being celebrated as much, or, I mean, there's not enough hours in the day for me to take it and absorb every news outlet or everything on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or anywhere else. But I don't see tough and gritty women like my mother celebrated as much. I'm sure you're out there. I'm absolutely sure you're out there, whether you wanted to be in that position somehow or not. I'm sure you're out there. You're doing the best you can with what you have, and you're living day by day. I salute you. Another example I want to throw out there is my younger sister. And she's always going to be my little sister. I mean, not just because she's considerably short in comparison to me. I almost have a whole foot on her, but that's a whole other thing. But I was always her big brother, and I always will be her big brother. And it wasn't until I was about 21, 22. My first son was just born, or recently born at that time. And I watched my sister graduate from high school. And she was on her way to college. And I visited her sometimes when she dormed. And she was making, the college thing work. Absolutely. And then eventually, after all that hard work in college, all that, student debt, all that shit, I was fortunate enough to watch my sister graduate from college. And in becoming an adult and watching my little sister become an adult, I don't think I was always proud of my sister. Always. I was always been proud to be her big brother. Always proud to be her protector when she needed it. Proud to, as kids, keep a secret. Don't tell Mom. Even though Mommy probably knew anyway. I mean, who the f*** did we think we were fooling? But seriously, in becoming an adult and being able to witness my sister become a young adult, I was even more proud of her. She was able to do something I still haven't done yet. She started college and she finished it. And that had always been a big deal to me. I never finished it yet. But if everything works out, I'll be able to have some kind of a degree in a year and a half, 2 years. But that's a whole other thing. My friends, my close people, they know what I'm talking about. But my sister got married, started her own family. Her family has a nice house, a lovely house. They live a decent life. And my sister has on her own gone through some tough moments, especially lately. I'm not going to get too personal, but she had some baby blues. And I'm not going to say anything more than that, but she has shown great strength and resilience through something that I'll never know personally, showed a womanly kind of strength and perseverance that, I mean, the kind of inner will power that I wish I had sometimes. I look at the tough things I went through and I have no idea. Looking back on them sometimes, I don't know how I got through them. I mean, me personally, I probably just turned into a machine and just operated through my dark days. But women like my sister, I know you're out there. I see you. I definitely see y'all. Y'all keep being strong and keep inspiring us. Call us out. Call us men out when we need to be called out. Ask us for help when you need it. I'm sorry. I'm apologizing for all men, whether whether there's some you like or not, or whether you don't like men at all, ladies out there. I'm apologizing for all men, all of us with a twig and berries, with a stick and balls. Okay, all of us men. We unfortunately can't read your minds as much as we want to. We can't, and we don't always know if and when you need help. Sometimes we're just not emotionally connected. Sometimes we don't notice the simple things. Sometimes we're being men, quite frankly. And in some ways, like, you can't help but, come into this world as a woman, or hell, transition into a woman, at least morally or mentally. Those of us who identify as men, we're just fucking men. Sometimes we just don't know any better, or we just can't see what's right in front of us. And on behalf of all men out there, we're sorry. And on behalf of all men, let me just say, I know you're out there. I know you women are out there getting shit done, kicking ass, taking names, and yelling out who's next. I know. I want to change direction slightly and discuss a little bit about the influx of female politicians in our U.S. government. A lot of ladies have now joined Congress, either in the Senate, definitely in the House of Representatives, and it's about damn time. I don't understand, like, what the problem was, guys. I'd like to think that, well, I mean, I didn't do the research, okay? So before you go sending me a tweet or an email or whatever, I didn't do the research that at this moment, as I'm saying this sentence, as I'm saying these words. But I'd like to think that most people that didn't vote for women before didn't generally vote for women who might have been the better candidate. Most of those voters might have been men, I think. But it's about time we leveled the playing field, so to speak. There are certain things in public policy that men, young or old, just don't know. It doesn't matter if they've got decades of law or politics under their belt. It doesn't matter if they live with a wife and they got 2 or 3 daughters at home. It doesn't matter. Men aren't women, just in the same way that women aren't men. Like, there might be something that certain topics that men will talk about. I don't really want to mention the whole sports thing because it ain't really that seems like too cliche. I don't know. There really isn't much now. I'm kind of glad to say that there really isn't much that is exclusively for men. I mean, still. I mean, there might be a little bit of a female population that can speak to it, but there's not a lot. There's not a lot that has a huge disparity anymore. I don't think. And that might be a nice problem to have. All right, what the hell? I'm thinking outside the box. I'm going to talk about James Bond movies. Now, I've been to many of them in the theater. I've sat and watched many of them with a female counterpart or what have you. And nothing against the females that have genuinely enjoyed a Bond movie. I kind of got the idea that women were into those movies because the guys playing Bond, I mean, it was solely because the guys playing Bond they thought were handsome. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. I mean, whereas we're looking and going, wow, nice suit. Where do where can I get a suit like that? Nice watch. Damn, I love that car. Or, stuff like that. Oh, man, like great action, all that kind of stuff. And the ladies are like, yeah, honey. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that blew up. Oh, my God. Can he just take his shirt off again? That's what they're thinking. I thought. And I might be right, to a certain degree. But, excuse me. But there are certain things that perhaps men have a little bit more expertise on than women, and quite frankly, as far as politics are concerned, women just want, a seat at the table. They want their voice heard, their voice is heard, and they want to have a say in things that have to do with women. One of the most important things is equal pay. I don't know why that's such a tough thing to figure out. I've said to people before, I mean, I don't mind being taxed necessarily by a government institution as long as, like, what pisses me off about tax is, sometimes the returns just, in my opinion, they were less than what I thought I should have got, or the fact that I might owe taxes. I mean, that's kind of bullshit. But another thing that leaves a nasty taste in my mouth about being taxed is that the tax money doesn't go to something productive. It doesn't go to something that deserves my tax money, so to speak. So, for example, if I were being taxed by the federal government and it went towards a cause where men and women, or gender fluid folks, whatever, if everybody's paid equally, okay. I'm not saying tax me all you want, but okay, tax me. Make sure that money goes towards it. If my money's being taxed for, women's reproductive rights or just general health rights, women's health rights, tax me. Don't tax me too much, but tax me. Put it towards something that should be considered, a common right. Especially for women. Do that. All right. One other thing I wanted to mention about women is what I've noticed, and I'm not going to get into too much detail about it right now. I feel like I've kind of talked a lot during this segment about women, and I can give you a part 2, a part 3, a part 4, part however many in the future. But I just wanted to bring a little bit of attention to women's professional sports, or even collegiate athletics. I believe there was a story a few weeks ago where there was I think it was a Division II college football program was letting a female try out for the team, or they were apparently going to give her a spot on the team, and she was, a place kicker. Likely, I say because that just seems like the one place you should put a woman so that she doesn't, or you hope she doesn't incur as much damage as any other player on the field. Because football can kill you. Football can really damage you. Now, for example, if football's being played, 11 on 11, women, against women, then okay. I think enough of that whole lingerie shit, if they're still even doing that. I remember at one point there was a lingerie football league, and quite personally, I wasn't entertained by it. It was just kind of like, it's the 21st century, man. If I want to see scantily clad women, I can go to a gentleman's club or just, take out my phone and do a Google image search or whatever. I mean, come on. But anyway, Other such sports, getting back to the professional thing, yes, there's a WNBA out there. And it's been out there for, if I'm counting correctly, they started in 97. I remember that was a big deal. I mean, I was heavy into the NBA in 1997, and I remember they started, I think, a week or two right after the Bulls won their 5th championship in 1997, and I watched the first, couple of games, and it was pretty popular. And then it seemed like they kind of died down a little bit. The league got revitalized and so forth. You've got star players every year, all-stars every year. That those same ladies were going to the Olympics every summer Olympic year. They were bringing home the gold, it seemed, every year. In fact, there were a couple of Olympics where they were bringing home gold and the dudes weren't. So that should tell you something. That might tell you something. But you've got the WNBA, and they've held their popularity over these 20 plus years. And I believe there's a semi-pro hockey league out there. Or maybe it's just straight up professional. They just don't have a lot of spectators. They definitely don't have TV coverage or much TV coverage. I'm not too knowledgeable about that right now at the moment. There is, I believe, still a professional women's soccer league that also, the scope is low on that, but there's not, and I want to say perhaps there's still a women's softball league. I apologize. I should have done the research, but to talk about women's sports just popped in my head, and I felt like I had to just discuss it a little bit before I would cut the segment off and forget that I wanted to talk about it because I didn't write it down. I apologize. But whatever professional leagues out there that there are out there, none of them are as big as the WNBA, and I think perhaps they should be. Women can do just like us. In fact, some women can do it better. I don't understand how you could think that they can't. There are some things women can do better than men, just like there are some men that could do things better than women. Whatever. But the playing field, pun intended, there should be a little bit more level. I'll sit back and watch some professional softball or something, or I'll watch some professional women's hockey. I'll watch professional women's football even, So, something to think about. That's all. So for my thoughts about the women out there, the important women to me for those examples, or just a few of the important women to me for those examples, and what I've seen recently from women out there, just a little taste. All right, I'm going to spend a little bit of time now to talk a little bit about a thing called nervousness and how it fits in or applies to, I guess, everyday life. We hopefully don't go into daily activities or even rare activities, occasional activities, necessarily thinking about the concept that is nervousness. But before you know it, it shows up. And in those moments, those initial moments, or right then and there on the spot, you got to deal with it. It came to my mind in my very recent past. I've done a couple of things, or experienced a couple of things where I was very, very nervous or experiencing nervousness, which might have developed all the way into at least a little bit of anxiety about what was ahead of me, about what I was about to face, or what I was about to deal with, what I was about to experience. And I guess it had been on my mind. And of course, in those moments, what I was doing that brought about the nervousness got me thinking. And I thought I should talk a little bit about it, to say the least. I've gone out and socialized as any typical person should, especially more so given particular circumstances or given everyone's respective circumstances or situations. Going out and socializing, hanging out with friends, that sort of thing should be done on a regular basis. It's good to get out there, get some fresh air, have some fun, and things like that. But certain things like meeting new people or reconnecting with folks you hadn't seen in a while, like old friends you might be reconnecting with and catching up with, you haven't seen them in several months or even several years, brings about nervousness. You're thinking about, what am I going to find out, or what am I going to say, or how is he or she going to take whatever I say or what I reveal to them or what I explain to them. It brings about an air of nervousness. And at least for me, I get a little dry in the mouth. I don't know, maybe get a little jittery, not so much that I'm really shaking or having tremors or anything like that, but it's kind of for me physically, it's kind of the kind of, I say jitters because that's the best word I can come up with, but it's similar to when when the coffee kicks in, when the caffeine kicks in. But it's nothing that is it's nothing that's disabling or anything like that. It's just, for me, a normal human reaction to what I'm about to experience. It definitely happens to us when we have job interviews. We get nervous, we maybe pace around, we fiddle with our thumbs, we just try to do something to kind of preoccupy our mind or take our minds off of what we're about to go through. For some people, myself included, I chew gum. Excuse me. I tend to chew gum anyway. It's just kind of my thing, whether I'm experiencing nervousness or not. I do that. Some people will, I think some people still mess around with fidget spinners, I think. Or they look like little, at least the ones I've seen lately, they're like small cubes, and they have little like buttons or switches, things that, make a little noise or something. I forget what those are called, but those are also something for people dealing with anxiety or nervousness, maybe a little attention deficit here or there. I'm not a expert on those kind of those tools or aids in helping with those kind of things. But there are things like that. Some people will read, or if they have something readily available to read, or they'll play a little game on their phone if it's feasible. But to get back to my thoughts on nervousness, it was just something that I wanted to discuss a little bit. Again, I'm just coming off of something, or a couple of things I just experienced, where I had a definite sense of nervousness internally that I hadn't felt in a while, all things considered. And I wanted to discuss what I thought about it. The feelings of nervousness that I had, they weren't debilitating. They, didn't shut me down. I didn't freak out. I didn't, I didn't have a negative experience, at least as far as I know. But I wanted to, I wanted to share my thoughts on it and anything else that came to mind. One thing I did recently, I shot a commercial for local broadcasting of the Buffalo Sabres. broadcasts. And I don't really do anything on a normal basis as far as performing arts. Like I don't do commercials like some celebrities say. I don't normally do commercials. I don't have the opportunities to do such a thing. I don't do theater acting, stage acting, not like I used to years and years ago. I don't do any film work, and I don't do a whole lot of film work, not like I used to. And back then it wasn't a lot anyway. But I do remember in auditioning for these parts or these little bit roles, I was very nervous. Very, very nervous. And I was fortunate enough to coach myself through even those nervous moments where you're auditioning and they give you the lines to say and they tell you how they want you to act or they want you to deliver the lines. And just by human nature, your mind, and in your mind you're thinking of, okay, don't mess this up, or what if I say this wrong, or pronounce it this way, I think this is the correct way to pronounce it, or say it like this. And you internally give yourself reasons to potentially freak out. And I and many other people are lucky enough to be able to coach themselves into a state of calm or some kind of normalcy so that they can get through the audition. And at least in my experience, even after auditioning, let's say you're lucky enough to get the part, or big or small part, they want you back, they want you to come back and do it for real. Even then you're nervous, because between the audition and when you're actually there to take the role, you're thinking like, okay, I think of a new way to do this, or I think I refined it, I think I perfected it. And even then, let's say you're with other actors, maybe more seasoned actors or actresses, and you're even more nervous because they know what they're doing. And you might feel like you don't. You're giving yourselves reasons to be nervous, to freak out, to feel uneasy about something that you may very well have the power and exceeding an ability to deliver on. Nervousness can make you feel like you're inadequate, almost automatically, and sometimes out of nowhere. I would say that you shouldn't let nervousness take you over, because you could literally sabotage yourself out of success, whether you're acting, or you're delivering a speech, or you're teaching a class, or you're going on a date, or anything. Or let's say, heck, I'm thinking even way outside the box. You're a parent looking to adopt a child, and you're just getting to know that child that you could potentially become the parent or guardian of. There's a lot of nervousness there. So I would say try the best you can to maybe perhaps not let your imagination get the better of you. Don't start trying to imagine or think of what could go wrong. Don't put yourself down. Don't limit yourself. Don't tell yourself that, oh, I don't have this. I just don't have it. Or I'm not prepared for this. Or I don't know what I'm doing. What did I think? Who did I think I was? Thinking I could, achieve this or try my hand at that. I mean, look at me. I'm not doing something that is very perfected or refined. I'm trying my hand at something that, with belief and self-coaching and the ability to take care of nervousness or to alleviate my own nervousness, I'm doing something that hopefully is successful for me, or at least decent. Yeah, just do the best you can to be positive, optimistic. Don't shoot yourself in the foot by letting your imagination or nervousness get the better of you. I mean, believe me, I've I've been through it many a times, especially in the dating world or in the sense of dating. I sabotaged so many first dates and stuff that, or heck, even second or third dates, hell, even fourth dates, just by being nervous about things. I've probably sabotaged good jobs I could have had by being so nervous in the job interview. I couldn't keep eye contact, I couldn't speak clearly, or I didn't speak loud enough, or I maybe misspoke, or I got some kind of detail wrong on my resume, which then makes me look like I'm being deceptive or whatever. Don't shortchange yourself. Nervousness, yes, it's a normal human emotion or reaction, if you will, but it's only temporary. You got this. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make. If you get nervous, you're dealing with nervousness and anxiety, don't worry. You got this. And even if it doesn't work out this time, you still got it. Try and try again. You got this. All right. So I think I've spoken my piece on that topic. Let's move on. All right, this is the part of the episode in which we get the potpourri of current events, other things happening in the world, and my thoughts and discussions, quicker discussions on those various things. The first thing I'm going to talk about is jumping back into not necessarily International Women's Day, but just a small example or a small snippet of an example of women doing things that many of us, most if not all of us, thought traditionally only men did or would do. And that is in regards to women out there in the world of trucking. And that seems to be on the rise, actually. Women have been doing it for a while. Yes, in fact, I know someone, I know a nice woman, not too personally, but I know of a woman who is out there behind the wheel of a truck, making it happen. But the numbers, the percentages, if you will, are increasing. It seems year to year. And trucking isn't exactly it's definitely not one of the most glamorous things for anyone to do. One of the biggest issues that they deal with is sexism, because it's still technically, I hate saying it, it's still technically a man's world. And it's not fair to it's not fair to women that are doing a decent job, doing well, doing this, to say that it's a man's world. It just seems to be a universe, subculture, or a culture, if you will, where men are, still doing most of or they still have a lot of influence in it or whatever. Again, it's not glamorous, unfortunately. I guess worse is the best word I can come up with in this moment. It's a little bit worse for women because of different factors. Obviously, the biggest one you might think is the misogyny, the sexism. And there is personal safety. There is hygiene, because women have to deal with a special kind of hygiene, just period. No pun intended. I'm sorry, that was the wrong word to use. I thought it's true, but I wasn't trying to use that word. But anyway, the quote unquote trucker lifestyle associated with kind of sleeping in a very confined space, being on the road all the time, being away from friends and family if they have them. For an extended period of time, on and off, going back in this circle, back and forth. is taxing, not just for men, but definitely for women, even more so for women. But I'm talking about this because I didn't realize it was on such a rise, a notable rise. I'm taking my information, I just want to say, from a USA Today article that was posted recently about such a thing. And I guess it's newsworthy because, excuse me, many folks out there besides myself didn't realize it was such a notable rise or noticeable rise that women were out there, making it work, out there on the road. And good for them. If that's what they choose to do, if that's what they want to, excuse me, if that's what they want to do with their time and effort, energy, attention, if they're making good money, by all means, go for it. Be safe out there, I tell you, because trucking is not, I never really thought of trucking as being a completely safe work environment. But yeah, by all means, just be safe, do your thing out there, make it work, transport whatever you're transporting. And while you ladies are out there, make it back home safe. At the very least, make it back home safe. All right. The next thing I wanted to talk about is going back to another, going back to a previous topic in my last episode, in the second episode, where I talked about baseball. This particular topic, I want to just discuss a little quickly, isn't necessarily about baseball, but it involves a baseball player. And there's a particular pitcher who plays for the Detroit Tigers. His name is Matthew Boyd. And he has taken it upon himself to, actually, himself and his wife, to be more specific, have put forth their time, their money, their charity, their generosity, their awareness towards a mission to end sex slavery or human trafficking. And it is a real thing. If you have no idea what this is, read up on it. Do a Google search. Do whatever you got to do. But sex trafficking is a real thing, a serious thing. And no one, not a soul on this earth, deserves to be the victims of such a heinous thing. But what Matt and his wife Ashley are doing, their charity, I believe it is, this is also coming from USA Today, a recent article. They have essentially adopted several young girls in Uganda. And unfortunately, in Africa, there are many areas in Africa where a lot of girls are bought or sold into sex slavery or abducted into such a thing. In fact, abductions can happen anywhere. Stateside here, Africa, Europe, Asia, Russia, Australia, all across the globe. It can happen anywhere. And once these young girls are in, it's very, very tough, if not close to impossible, to get them out, to locate them and get them out. But a lot of good work is being done. There are people locally here, even in Buffalo, that are doing great work to help the cause to end such a terrible, terrible thing. I wanted to talk about this story because it's a baseball player who you don't really think about professional athletes getting too involved, but there are professional athletes out there that are getting involved, and what he's doing is very commendable. He's taking some of his salary, of course. He's working with the Detroit Tigers organization to take tickets that they sell during their during their spring training games and taking proceeds towards funds to raise for, I believe he has a foundation set up already. No, they're in the process of creating a nonprofit charity by the name of Kingdom Home, and their goal is to save these young girls from, again, such a dangerous and just terrible thing. So good on him, good on them for doing it, and I hope it really works out. I hope they are successful. I really do. I think more people should get involved if they can. Donate where you can. If you can get more involved, more hands-on with the cause, by all means, do what you can. Every little bit helps, indeed. The other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not too familiar with how this works, honestly, or do these situations really work out the same way? Do they often work out this way? But, and this is also coming out of Detroit. Well, this story is more so involved in Detroit, where I was talking about a player who plays for Detroit. He's not in Detroit doing what he's doing right now, but anyway, back to this. In Detroit, in the Detroit area, a dog, I believe it's a pit bull mixed puppy. From all the way down in Florida, was located and found in Michigan. Now, if you've seen a map of the United States, you know how, or you can kind of maybe imagine the distance between the state of Florida and the state of Michigan. And I'd like to think your next thought is, how did a dog make it that far? I know it's not impossible at all, but that kind of thing was something you kind of always saw, you kind of always seen in movies, or like a TV show where a dog, or hell, even commercials, where a dog makes it, travels across state lines and ends up from one side of the coast to the other coast or something. And you get suspended in that kind of fiction because it's a movie or it's a TV show, but this is real. Somehow, someone in Florida had lost their dog, and the dog was found, like, someone didn't exactly find the dog at like a bus station or somewhere else. Like I don't know the exact. It doesn't say. This article doesn't say exactly the details. And this is also from USA Today. I did my searching for current events from USA Today, all three of them. But someone had found the puppy on the street. It seemed to be in decent health, and they brought it into a shelter, and they were able to figure out that, hey, this dog was lost in Florida. It just makes you wonder. I mean, I've never been a dog owner. I've actually had cats, but I'm not sure. For those of you out there who might have lost a dog before and got the dog back, or unfortunately maybe lost a dog and never saw it again, I don't know. I just wonder, how often does the search go as far as extending out past a state line? I grew up thinking, okay, you lost a dog, maybe it's in the neighborhood somewhere, maybe somewhere in the city. And I thought that perhaps going out further than, let's say, the county you live in or whatever was being pretty expansive. Or just keeping it within a state was pretty expansive. But then going, across several states, whoa, holy shit. But this story, this topic has a happy ending. The dog was found, taken care of, treated very well, and the owner has been or will be reunited with, if it hasn't been already reunited by the time you hear this podcast, but the dog has been reunited with its owner. And I'd like to think that perhaps precautions will now be in effect to keep that dog from definitely going back to Michigan, much less Detroit. I mean, Detroit ain't no Chicago right now, but Detroit is still Detroit. No disrespect to anybody in Detroit. It's just times are tough out there. Times are tough in Michigan, period. For example, when is Flint going to get clean water? But I feel like I could go on a rant about that, and I don't think I have enough time to do that in the future, like everything else. But yeah, good ending to that story. The dog gets reunited with its owner, and let's hope it just doesn't decide to go on a road trip again. All right, enough about those few things. We are going to move on to the 29. All right, in closing, I, as always, just want to say thank you for giving me your time and attention and your support, your encouragement. This time, this third episode has actually been, this is the longest thus far. I'm not sure if this is a sign of the times. I'm not sure if this is if this is going to be, status quo, if every episode is going to get longer and longer and longer. I do shoot for these anywhere between an hour 15, hour and a half, so we'll see how it goes. But in any event, thank you. So, I hope I didn't talk too much about the particular topics of discussion this time out. I hope I didn't say the wrong things about, women or nervousness I just spoke about and other such things. This episode was not an easy one to get through. Let me just say that right now. I've been talking through a considerable amount of pain, not excruciating, but I've been talking through pain because I wanted to stay on schedule and get this episode out in time. There's always things on my mind to talk about or things I want to discuss, and I wanted to get it out there. I hope you don't mind. But let me give you the answer to the riddle. And one more time, the riddle reads as: what four-letter word can be written forward, backward, or upside down and can still be read from left to right? Noon. Noon. As in midday. Noon. 12 o'clock p.m. How about that? Ain't that something? Again, I was hoping that it wasn't too tough. Sooner or later, I'm going to end up having to throw a very tough one at you guys. Something that I might not even know the answer to, although in doing these episodes, I'm going to have the answer right in front of my face. So I'm at an advantage, of course. But going back to what I mentioned about just a few seconds ago, a moment or so ago, I really hope I didn't say anything offensive, for example, about women. I was clearly being honest. I was being honest about what I felt about men, about my fellow man. And when you start talking about the sexes, male, female, or even those who are gender fluid now, that's definitely in discussion now. It becomes a touchy subject, and people's feelings can get hurt, or they can misinterpret things, or get the wrong idea about you. But I just hope in my episodes and in my topics that I'm not doing that, especially in consideration of this topic about women. So, anywho, thank you once again for coming to, or opening up some time in your life to listen to my 3rd episode. I appreciate it. I hope you come back for the 4th and many more to come after that. Thank you. Be safe. Take care. Laugh always. Thank you.